Hey guys, it's Sarah from Plan Sarah Plan, and welcome to my history of planners since 1999. I started off with this Stewart Hall undated planner and basically just used it as a to-do list and a little bit of a schedule. We were a homeschooling family at that point, and so a lot of the things that I scheduled had to do with homeschool time or family time. Then I got my first at-a-glance agenda, and I loved it because the hours were divided into 15-minute increments. And if there's anything I love, it's micromanaging an hour. So I really loved that 15-minute increment thing. I was using pencil. There was no thought of style per se at that point when I was planning. It was all about function. And the columns for each day were kind of wide. The paper was not thin and luxurious like today's gorgeous planners, but it did the job. And then for 2002 and 2003, I just went to notebooks or journals, and I made my own schedules and to-do lists. And there is more than one of these for this period of time, but here is one example of those. And then I kept doing that. This is a giant chunky notebook that I found at Barnes & Noble with really nice thick paper and pink lines. And it was a pleasure to write my to-do lists and schedules in this notebook. And again, there were more than just these, but I saved them all. So I would do stuff like this, pretty similar to what I do now in a bullet journal. And then I needed a little bit more specific scheduling when I got into this period. So I went back to the at-a-glance. And at that point, I considered an at-a-glance agenda to be a luxury. It was $30. And to me, that was exorbitant for an agenda. But these were really great. And so I used pencil still, got another one the next year. And these came in different formats, still do, but I liked the ones that had, I think they call them appointment books, that have these 15-minute increments. And I used pencil. I didn't use any stickers at all. I may have used Post-it notes here or there. But things were constantly changing. So pencil was the most practical thing. I'd never heard of a rescheduled or canceled sticker at that point. Here is a similar notebook to one I showed before, but this is a larger size. And so I went back to a notebook system, but I loved how in the at-a-glance you could trim off the corners to keep track of where you were. So I started just folding the corners up to mark where I was in this notebook. And it's a combination of to-do lists and schedules. Sometimes I have been so time conscious that I've scheduled things down to the minute or the 5 minutes. And here we're back in an at-a-glance, so that was definitely a favorite. I wasn't crazy about the black covers. I thought they were pretty masculine. I mean, it wasn't a big deal, but I definitely at this point was craving style, and that's probably why I would go to those cool notebooks and journals that I would find at Barnes & Noble. And here's a cool journal. I actually found this one at Cato, and it's a Molly and Rex journal, and every page is full color. And it was a great deal. I don't know what I paid for it, but it was not much at all. And I loved how the color scheme would sort of change each day. And there were quirky and fun little pieces of art here and there. Then I found my first day runner. And the cool thing about this was that it was like the at-a-glance, but it had a bit of style to it. So there were color embellishments. The months were tabbed, but it still had those 15-minute increments. Really loved that. I love lines. I still love lines. That has not changed. So I was still using pencil to plan. I had not even thought about gel pens at this point. Then at Tuesday morning, I found this journal for $3. It has no brand written on it, or I would share that with you, but it feels like so soft on the cover. I know it's not leather, but it feels like a soft leather. And I used this thing a lot. It was kind of weird that the lines were only printed on the front side of the page, but that was not a problem. That is just interesting. Never had a journal like that. And then I found this one at TJ Maxx. And as a musician, I love the fact that those notes and music symbols were done correctly. I cannot stand it when I see a journal or some accessory or something and it's trying to be musical, but it's got like really weird and incorrect music symbols. I can't stand that. So I was making my own schedules and lists as needed in this book. Not much has changed. I'm very consistent in that and still using pencil most of the time. I used this for a long time along with some others. I just didn't haul every single thing out. And I generally never throw these away. So this I thought was gorgeous. I found this at Target. It was a Mead Cambridge, really beautiful pale blue cover, and it was a horizontal layout. So I ended up dividing these horizontal rectangles into sections, and that worked better for me. And you'll see later on that same philosophy applies when I used a horizontal Erin Condren life planner. So that was in 2015. It was gorgeous. I was not consistent with this book though. There are many weeks that have nothing written in them. So I would go back to the notebook system. And then finally, I heard of Erin Condren, and I got my first life planner in 2016, and it was a colorful vertical. I had done the Gallup Strength Finders questionnaire there, so I posted my results. Didn't use those boxes at all. They were kind of narrow that year. So here we go. This was my planning style. My first gel pens were friction gel pens, and I love them except that the ink started to fade with time. And if I ever took this life planner with me and left it in the car and it got hot, that ink would disappear. So after a while, I figured that out and stopped using the friction pens. But this was colorful and this was cool, and I used it consistently more than that Mead Cambridge planner. But I was not comfortable with the vertical completely. I did start doing a monthly assessment at the end of each month, because at this point I had no idea that notes page was really intended for the next month. And by May, I gave up on vertical, and I found in Staples an hourly planner and made a Franken planner. And I was more comfortable with hourly because I had lines. I didn't really need the time so much. That's what's weird. Because I can write in the times myself. And that's particularly helpful when you may start your days at different times. You may start your appointments at different times. So you might want one day to start at 10 in the morning, and you might want the next day to start at 7 in the morning. So I guess my dream planner would be an hourly with no hours in it. So this was a big deal. On July 17th, 2016, my first book of piano compositions was published. It was called Full Circle. Can you see things changing now? I'm using stickers. I had some sticker paper at the top that I cut to sort of be washi at the top. I played around with stencils and lettering. I still was doing monthly assessments on the notes page at the end of the month. And I stuck with Erin Condren for 2017. I went with neutral instead of colorful. Love trying new things. I'm a creature of habit in some ways, but in many ways, I really just love variety. This was a really cool spread. I used the 12 boxes to keep track of data for 4 categories. The number of measures I composed, the scrapbook pages I did, the letters I sent, and how many pages I read. So for 6 months, I took care of that or kept track of that like a boss. And then for the next 6 months, I didn't do it at all. And look, it's horizontal. So that was weird to get used to, but looking back, I just think it was beautiful. Still was doing the assessments at the end of the month, trying out different ways to divide up those horizontal sections. Sometimes I divide it into 4 columns, sometimes a larger column in the middle and just 3 columns, but still loved the assessments. This page I thought was really pretty. I liked those parrots on the washi tape, and I liked the lettering. Found some super skinny washi one day and tried that out to divide the boxes into sections. And then here we are in the next one, and I stuck with horizontal. So I was really starting to get it. And that's where the EC Plan Your Way to 5K Challenge was announced, or maybe it was the first day of it. And here's when my second book of piano solos was published. It was called Star City Solos. And the notes page changed. So at first I was not doing a monthly assessment because I wasn't really sure how to utilize that layout with the 4 circles at the top. And I tried making my horizontal into an hourly on that spread. All right, so I switched back to hourly with my next planner. And my third book was published here. It was called Smart Tones. That's my easiest collection for beginning students or late beginners. And I recognized those dual tip markers in that spread. I think that's when those came out. Dual tip markers from Erin Condren. So there's really not a consistent style from page to page. It's just, hey, what are we going to try this week? I loved how this week turned out. I thought that was especially pretty. And then look what happened. I was in line at Target one day, and all of a sudden I hear a voice behind me who said, "Are you Sarah?" And it was Plan with Ronald right behind me in line. And we've become friends since then. So now we're at the last week of that life planner with a lot of mild liners, and that brings us to now. My current life planner is a binder. Thank you guys for staying with me on this tour of my planners for the last 20 years. I'll see you next time.